Getting into the St. Patty's Day weekend, you'll probably overindulge. That's okay. That's what the weekend's about. But come Monday, you're going to want to talk to Charles D'Angelo, the weight loss development coach, author of Think and Grow Thin and Inner Guru. Welcome.
Hey, good to see you both.
Good seeing you.
So come Monday morning.
No,
because
I was going to interrupt you, but since I just met you, I thought it'd be inappropriate.
Well, that's okay. Everyone else does.
The idea
I
is
always
to
do.
not allow ourselves to use food or substances, particularly when our health is at a critical stage, as a distraction or consolation. So it's not that moderation is inappropriate. It's that moderation is not appropriate when there's such urgency to a situation. So often a person will convince themselves by rationalization, telling themselves, well, it's just St. Patrick's Day. Or since Sunday's St. Patrick's Day, why not just throw this whole weekend out the window and indulge all weekend? Come Monday, they feel so overburdened by what they've done, it's likely that they even put it off further. So the idea is change your mindset so you disconnect from that type of belief system so you don't find yourself there.
Yeah, allow me to interrupt you there, Charles. You just poo-pooed my entire plan for the weekend there, okay?
He was hoping for that Monday.
So the idea is to get to a place where food doesn't have that charge to it. It's not that down the road, once you have a healthier relationship with yourself and substances, you can't integrate those types of things. But the idea is to get to the place where it doesn't have that almost compulsive feel to it. And that's the work I help people really do.
Myself included, and I think there are other people out there that sometimes use food as that way of making us feel a little better. When I am hungry, angry, lonely, tired, halt, I tend to go to the vices that I have left, and food is one of them.
Yeah, food, sometimes achievement even. You were talking about this awesome project you're working on from a film perspective. Sometimes we can distract ourselves or console ourselves with things aside from those that we really need to address. So often, if perhaps our personal life isn't looking the way we want it to look, we'll go for achievement. We'll try to make ourselves feel significant and feel important by going and accomplishing great things. Other times, if we're sad or we feel lonely, we'll turn to Johnny Walker or turn to McDonald's, something like that, to try to keep ourselves from really dealing with the more, shall we say, complex issues, which are how do we let ourselves feel the emotions we're having, not push them aside.
Well,
So
talk about that a little bit, because it does take courage, and it's easier said than done. We would all love to say, I'll just deal with these problems and not have a Big Mac, but we don't. We end up kind of maybe doing a little bit of both, but we still have the Big Mac. How do we take me through a process whereby we can think ahead and not find ourselves in that position?
I think the first step is honesty. I think you have to really admit to yourself where you are. You have to look at where you are, not see yourself worse than you are, but see yourself as you are. And then you have to decide upon some aims you have for yourself. What are the goals? What are the objectives? And what do you want to do about closing the gap from where you find yourself to achieving those aims? So once you have some goal in mind, you set forth in a direction. Often, many people don't have a goal. They have no idea of where their life really is headed. And this doesn't just apply to weight loss. So you introduced me by saying I'm a weight loss and personal development coach. So I always tell people my work is kind of like a Trojan horse. They come to me and we certainly resolve the issue of reducing their weight, but we also want to resolve what caused the symptom of overweightedness in the first place. And again, that comes back to looking at what aren't you looking at in your life? Is it your interpersonal or intimate relationship is lacking the passion that you really want? Is it you don't feel as fulfilled in your career? Is perhaps a major loss occurred? Maybe you've lost someone very close to you, or you went through a relationship breakup and you've kind of lost your sense of center. And so you find yourself in this fog, so to speak. Once you decide what you want your life to look like and you look at where you are, you can begin to take the steps necessary to get there if you're ready to embrace responsibility, which in our culture isn't all that common and certainly isn't all that sexy to talk about. That is, we are responsible for where we find ourselves. We're not to blame. It's not about beating yourself up, but you do have to hold yourself, as you said, accountable to getting to where you want to go.
We've been hearing so much about, and I know a lot of people have been doing it, and it's been pretty successful for some people, but it's been in the media a lot. What are your feelings on like the keto diet and the intermittent fasting? And because I know it's different for every person and every age. Everyone's body is so different.
I think that if food were the only answer, we wouldn't see people with the problem they have. So we do have to have a healthy food plan, and you have to find one that particularly allows you to function at your optimal level given who you are. And each person has different needs. I'm not a dietitian or nutritionist, but fundamental healthy eating habits are pretty easy to come by. I mean, there's a gym on every corner. There's a dietitian in every hospital. There's trainers. You can't go down the street without finding something that could educate you in terms of how to make better choices with food or exercise. But I think if those two things were all we needed, we wouldn't see people struggling the way I once did. I was 360 pounds as a teenager. So at 360 pounds, it wasn't I didn't know that an apple was healthier than a Snickers bar. It was that there was a lot of emotional material that was really clouding me from acting as clearly as I could, and that is taking control of my choices and really stepping out and doing for myself what I ought to have done much earlier.
It's sometimes I see people that have had the great success that you have had. That is, you've gone from 360 down, and I was one point where I lost 50 or 60 pounds.
Fantastic.
And then I put it back on. But it's almost as though you say, it's almost too easy to say, I did it, you can do it. How do you get somebody from A to B to realize they too can do it?
Well, we all have the capacity, certainly. I can say that I believe each of us have the capacity for a degree of change. The willingness is a variable. It's everyone wants a product, but not everyone's willing to pay the price of discipline or go through the process. And the process certainly requires that we make sacrifices in the present as a way of bargaining with the future. So we're the one species that I'm aware of that God's given us a gift that we have a sense of time. A wolf, if it encounters a carcass, will eat all 40 pounds of meat in one sitting. We, on the other hand, can think about how is this going to impact me tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, 3 months from now, a year from now. So I think all too often, to your point of how do we get ourselves out of this impulsive or compulsive pattern, we've got to start to think about the future version of ourselves. If we think about our actions today, and this goes in regard to your relationship with your health and your relationship with your significant other, in your relationship with your faith, how is what you're doing now either investing into your future or withdrawing from your future? Because every single thing you do does have an impact. And regardless of if you believe in God or not, I always tell people when they ask me, well, I do, and certainly I will always believe and act as if I do, because what's your alternative? In other words, if you think if there's no point to what you're doing, if it doesn't have any impact, well, I think you're going to find yourself hopeless. And if you're hopeless, you become bitter and you start to do various destructive things. So I encourage everyone to start to think about what direction you're headed. How is what you're doing today getting you closer to what you want once you define what those outcomes are? And find someone you can model or someone who can accompany you in that process of getting there.
Charles D'Angelo, he is a weight loss development and a life coach, author of Think and Grow Thin, Inner Guru. Charles, where can people find information about you, what you've done, and how you work with them?
Well, first, you can do it. So if you go to my website, charlesdangelo.com, you can see hundreds, literally, that's not hyperbole, hundreds of videos of people who have lost 100, 200, 300 pounds from all walks of life, of all ages, of all ethnicities, of all backgrounds. So charlesdangelo.com, and I would watch the videos. So don't just take my word for it. Listen to people who might be where you find yourself today and who have not only changed your life, but are continuing to practice the disciplines and staying there.
CharlesD'Angelo.com. It's the weekend. Start today. Start right now.
There we go.
Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure, guys.